It was a brisk fall day when 6-year-old me was given one of the best presents anyone could ever hope for Christmas.
Last time I saw my grandmother, she asked me was I still a praying man. I told her, yes ma'am. Well, she said, pray harder, cause it ain't working.
Oh, Dead Rising.
I ain't gonna die waiting on salvation.
Yeah, but they said
As
everything
long
that
as
was
we still got guns,
Oh, yeah, they did. So it's gonna be. You can't already have Left 4 Dead.
and if we run out of bullets, they gonna wish we
This
had.
can't be Left 4 Dead. Oh my god, dude, you're kidding me. Left 4 Dead 2 already. November 17th, was it?
On November 17th, 2009, Left 4 Dead 2 launched. This game finally captivated audiences and critics alike, leading to one of the longest-standing multiplayer experiences in the history of gaming. 15 years later, and I still see more than 11 people on at any given time, blowing Concord out of the water. With success like that, it would almost certainly spawn a franchise of multiple titles spanning years, right? Well, actually, no. Left 4 Dead 2 was the final installment in the Left 4 Dead franchise and probably will be for the foreseeable future. But before we get into why Left 4 Dead 3 may or may not exist, first we need to go all the way back to 2005. In 2005, Left 4 Dead was created by Valve and Turtle Rock Studios. It began its development the same year and it wouldn't be released until 2008. The concept for Left 4 Dead actually started with a mod called Terror Strike for Counter-Strike Condition Zero. In this mod, 4 players were terrorists who planted a bomb and defended it from counter-terrorists. This eventually evolved into the game mode we know and love today. Left 4 Dead 1 was a pretty successful title for the time, but again, it came out during a time when people just didn't have money to spend on things that they wanted to. Left 4 Dead 2 is absolutely one of those games that stands the test of time, however. You could go back and play it today and enjoy it just as much as if you played it on that day in 2008. The most notable differences include a plethora of game mechanics changes and quality of life updates. Left 4 Dead 1 plays significantly slower than Left 4 Dead 2, and they're oftentimes on very similar looking maps. The atmosphere of the maps is incredible and consistent between both titles, and I don't think it's something that they could beat with a third installment in the franchise. From my understanding, the main reason that Left 4 Dead 2 was released was simply due to the time period. It was met with significantly higher sales than the first installment, and since it had created a fanbase with the first game, it was easier to have a lot of those returning fans jump right back into the action when Left 4 Dead 2 was released. I feel like nobody expected it either. Left 4 Dead 1 took a whole 5 years for development, whereas the second Left 4 Dead took just over a year. I won't lie to you and tell you that Left 4 Dead 2 isn't a major improvement over the first title, because it absolutely is. But it just seems so strange to me that they'd release 2 installments of the game and then never talk about it or touch it again as a development studio. It's widely understood by video game creators and designers that Left 4 Dead 2 wasn't actually supposed to happen. It was merely a victim of circumstance and technological restrictions around the time. When Left 4 Dead 2 was released a year later in November 2009, Valve attributed the short turnaround between the titles as a result of having many ideas to expand on the first game, but more than could be reasonably done through software patching or downloadable content. We've seen how in the modern day many franchises release a game and then continue to support that game for many years. And 2 of the biggest examples that I can think of are Destiny 2 and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Siege was released in 2015 and continues to receive content updates as well as software patches, all the way in 2024 as of the time of this video. Destiny 2 similarly was released in 2017 and actually just had a massive DLC drop like 2 months ago. And these two titles are both flagships of their publishers, and they absolutely contribute to the idea that live service games can and do often provide more fruits for their labor than one might think. So, the question you might be asking yourself is that if Left 4 Dead 1 was limited by technological restrictions, and Left 4 Dead 2 was released only a year later, and we've yet to see a third installment in the franchise, well, what changed with Valve's marketing ideas? Well, when Left 4 Dead 2 was released in 2009, Steam was not nearly half the platform it is today. Obviously, it was used for PC gamers to play their favorite games, but at the time, PCs weren't nearly as prevalent as gaming consoles, and oftentimes they weren't nearly as powerful or a better option in general, like they are today. After the economic depression in 2008, specifically in the American market, there was a massive recovery of investment into the gaming industry, as well as an influx of people with new money to spend on new products. Those years saw some of the biggest releases in recent memory, and one such game being the beloved Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which is still regarded as one of the best titles in the entire franchise. Call of Duty 2 made Steam as a whole an estimated $101.9 million, selling just over 7.6 million units. Left 4 Dead 2, however, produced slightly more at $130 million in gross revenue for Valve. You may be thinking, well, then why did they continue to innovate with other games instead of their own titles when it made almost $30 million more? Well, that's simple. Valve may have not made all $101.9 million on the Call of Duty title, but they also put in virtually nothing of their own money. Whereas Left 4 Dead 2 was financed almost completely by Valve themselves as well as Turtle Rock Studios, which, as I said previously, ended up getting purchased by Valve. You have to understand that in 2009 and 2010, Valve also witnessed the major financial flops of some games that were expected to have massive returns. Some titles today that we might even consider classics, but financially they never even broke even. Some such games include Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Conviction, BioShock 2, Bayonetta, and Dark Void. And this was at a time where the American public as a whole were again reeling from such a large financial depression that a lot of video game companies ended up dead in the water. In 2009, taking a risk on a title wasn't nearly as negligible as it was in the early 2000s, where if it didn't do well, your company could just continue on. And obviously, there were some titans in the gaming industry, such as Activision Publishing, which realistically could have a game release make $0 and still survive until the next fiscal year. But for 99.99% of game publishers and game creators, that just wasn't the case. So I think this simply breaks down to the fact that Valve's moved away from video game creations because it's the safe option. They're making just enough money from their microtransactions and giving a platform to other games that they don't even need to take the risk of creating new content. Steam is an already established platform that pretty much anyone that PC games knows of already. But the sad truth of the matter is that Left 4 Dead 3 most likely is never going to happen. And there's a couple reasons for that. It's widely known around the gaming community that Valve as a company have shifted away from creating games and more just selling pre-made games from other creators. And with the emergence and the popularity of Steam, it just seems very stupid for them from a financial position as a company to take a risk on a title that may or may not succeed when they have complete financial security by just platforming other games. It's unfortunate to see, but the reality of the situation is that if we ever wanted to see a third Left 4 Dead installment, the only way that could be achieved is by putting financial pressure on Valve. And I'm not saying to sit here and boycott Valve or Steam in general, because that's completely unrealistic. But by doing those things, that would force them to go back into the realm of video game creation as opposed to just being a platform to sell other games. Recently, I saw this story popping up all over the internet saying that some data miners had found the Left 4 Dead 3 files in a Counter-Strike 2 file folder. And this had the internet up in arms and rejoicing over the possibility of a new Left 4 Dead game. But Valve came out and publicly stated that they just don't plan on making a new Left 4 Dead. And it's possible they're just trying to redirect attention and keep it under wraps, but I think it's more safe to say that after 15 years, they might just mean it. One thing that people don't understand is that Valve as a company will often just leave Left 4 Dead 3 files in pretty much all of their files in any game ever since Left 4 Dead 2 came out. It's not new, and unfortunately, I don't think it indicates that we're going to be seeing a new Left 4 Dead installment anytime soon. You also have to take into account that right now, Counter-Strike 2 is the most played game on Steam, and probably one of the most played games globally, and it took them nearly 13 years to actually release Counter-Strike 2. It remained Counter-Strike Global Offensive since its release all the way back in 2012. Even today, almost 15 years after its release, Left 4 Dead 2 remains in the top 10 for played games on Steam. It averages anywhere from 15,000 to 30,000 players on any given day and continues to sell fairly well during sales and other promotional events. They also do occasionally have updates for it, which means as a whole they are still supporting the title. This is just my personal belief. I think it would be absolutely incredible to have a Left 4 Dead 3 come out, but I just don't think that it's very realistic. I want you guys to let me know what you think about Left 4 Dead 3 and if you think it's ever going to exist down in the comment section below. I know this video isn't exactly the norm for my channel, but I've just started getting back into Left 4 Dead 2 and I feel like I just had to talk about it or I'd probably cry myself to sleep. If you guys did enjoy this video, feel free to go down below and drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell notification if you want to see more content just like this as soon as I upload it. And while you're at it, if you've got some free time, feel free to check out some of the other videos on my channel. They're not all Left 4 Dead 2 related, but they are all horror oriented, and if that's something you're into, feel free to stay around a while. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys all have yourselves a fantastic day. I'll see you in the next one.